Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Pro Wrestling Report Feedback Friday, episode number 77, here on May 20th, 4/20, 2017. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Hero, and what a week it has been. What a primetime and primetime extra, and hell, even a primetime extra preview yesterday, and the announcement that this guy won the 2016 PWR Fantasy Draft by a landslide, the likes of which have never been seen in a fantasy draft. I am on cloud 9, 11, 13, 15, 17, and 19 this week.
Whatever.
Yeah, see? He can't deal with loss. It's his ego. And your hands are very small, David Hero. What does that mean?
It's more flattering for myself.
Maybe you should be the communications director and press secretary in the White House.
I would be fantastic.
You would fix a lot of the problems we're seeing nowadays, and that is terrifying, actually.
What?
Well, just that is terrible. Did you see the president when he visited Wisconsin earlier this week?
I saw parts of it.
He was at some Snap-on tool factory.
Oh, it was a tool?
It was in Kenosha, so I think it was on the side of the road. Yeah.
Ah, okay.
But folks, this is Feedback Friday, and again, what a week it has been here in the Pro Wrestling Report. What a week it has been in professional wrestling. Of course, ran out of time on Primetime yesterday, and then had so much booked for the Primetime Extra podcast, we didn't get a chance to get to hot news, David Hero. So we're going to kick off Feedback Friday this week before we get to your comments with this week's hot news. How do you feel about that?
I love hot news.
Do you really? How much do you love hot news?
I love hot news.
Well, let's do it, folks. Firstly, Impact Wrestling is in the news. As we told you a couple of weeks back, they had formed a partnership, an agreement with AAA Wrestling out of Mexico. And now they have announced the details of that partnership. Now we found out that Impact Wrestling stars are going to be appearing at AAA's Triple Mania show in August. And also, AAA stars will be appearing at Slammiversary in June for Impact Wrestling.
How does that benefit Impact Wrestling?
Well, there's more to the partnership, but I think your question's valid as far as in-ring and wrestling presentation. But Fight TV, that's F-I-G-H Fight, the Fight TV network out of Canada, which is owned by Anthem Sports, which owns Impact Wrestling, is looking to expand their reach into South America, and AAA is going to help them with that. So it does get more exposure for Impact Wrestling, gets more United States exposure for AAA. But every time I think back to these cross-promotional deals, even WCW and New Japan, I believe it was, it just never mattered.
No.
So how will this be different and matter for either Impact Wrestling or AAA?
Now Impact gets their new cruiserweight division.
Oh, there you go.
That's how. That's what WCW did.
Now, as a booker promoter, is there a financial benefit to this deal as well for either company?
It helps TNA or Impact Wrestling or the Owl Company?
I think they got the message about the Owl, and they no longer want us to name it because it was, I think the Hardys made some shirts that named it for them.
Yes.
They got the FN.
They did. And by TNA now subleasing their talents out to AAA, which is essentially what they're doing.
Yeah, and vice versa.
They get booking fees.
So their talent gets booked on shows they otherwise wouldn't have been booked on, same as AAA. Now, and
I'm sure TNA will get a cut of that.
Good. And within this was North American and an international tour announced by both companies. I'm just not sure that at Slammiversary I'm going to care enough to see the AAA stars.
You won't. You know why? Because you don't know who they are.
But is there an audience that does know who they are that might be an additional audience for TNA who, quite frankly, can't draw more than 300,000 people on a weekly basis on Pop TV?
But they're gonna be at Triple Mania to watch them.
Which would be so. Who's winning in this deal?
AAA.
It's a loaded question.
AAA.
They're both winning. AAA is winning in the States.
But AAA
Impact's winning in Mexico.
They're gonna get stars from the States. Guys that aren't gonna wear hoods and flips.
But will that audience? Will they be well received in that environment?
Yeah,
because
they'll be great heels.
So it's sort of like the domestic stars that go over to Japan and work.
Like Border Wars.
That was WCW's pay-per-view, right?
I think so.
With no, that was an ECW pay-per-view, I think. But I hear what you're saying. There was a whole tournament, wasn't there? Like a New Japan tournament on a pay-per-view, and I don't recall it doing very well. Now, you're going to see great wrestling, but
you got to figure they're going to have a Trump character. Why not, right? That's cheap heat.
It's cheap heat. So more power to both companies, by the way, for at least, I think this is Jeff Jarrett's, it was his view, it was his approach with Global Force Wrestling, and now it's his approach with Impact Wrestling. I don't see how it hurts him, which is a good thing. Because pick any decision over the last 5 years, you can see how it would have hurt him.
They're going to get new talents that they're going to get at a discount price. You know,
not knocking those talents or the theory. It's just that's a good way to do business.
It is, and they're going to get guys that are going to be seasoned veterans that aren't fresh off the indies. You know, and is it going to sell pay-per-views? Nothing has sold a TNA pay-per-view. So we'll just have to wait and see. It's
another hook, and it could work. And also talking about TNA talents, actually former TNA talents, but Ken Anderson. Anderson is going to be making his debut with Ring of Honor Wrestling. Now, that's going to be on April 28th, the end of this month, in his home state of Minnesota.
Yes.
At a big Ring of Honor show up there. Ken Anderson, I don't think has ever actually worked for Ring of Honor, David Hero.
No, he has not.
A first for him.
And it's going to be in his hometown of Minneapolis. Too bad he's not going to be in Milwaukee the night before. That would be sweet.
What's on the night before in Milwaukee?
Ring of Honor.
They are in Milwaukee. Is that the same day?
No, they're on Friday.
Okay.
They're in Minneapolis. Don't you listen to Linda's Event Center?
She didn't do one this week.
Oh. How'd I do it?
You hear whispers of Linda's butterflies in your sleep as you... Do you count like Linda's before you go to bed? You know, like counting sheep?
Butterflies?
Yeah, you know, butterfly kisses.
Do you know what a Linda butterfly is? You need to Google search that.
We talked about restrictions in the office, and I'm not sure I should.
Okay.
But either way, yes, they are coming to Milwaukee for it. And that's going to be, I think, a non-sanctioned hardcore style event now in Milwaukee at Turner Hall.
Ray's going to be there.
As well.
Silas Young.
It's going to be a great show, but great opportunity for Ken Anderson.
Absolutely.
Folks, Dash Wilder has suffered a broken jaw. Dash Wilder, of course, one half of the Revival.
No. It's Scott Dawson.
It is, yes. What are these names? It literally on here says Dash Wilder and Scott Wilder. They're not brothers, are they?
Thank God I'm here.
You've done one thing over the course of these 3 episodes we've done this weekend.
Well,
so yes,
it was the most important thing.
Either way, what impact do you think this broken jaw, which is going to be out for up to 8 weeks,
it sucks because
it's going to have on the Revival
tag team, and now they're stuck in neutral. What is it with everyone that comes up from NXT gets hurt right away?
Everyone?
Yeah.
Such as? Only Finn Balor. Only Finn Balor.
American Alphas, they got hurt.
Oh, they did, yeah. But, you know, here's the good news about the Revival. They didn't do nothing. They showed up. She did, yeah. She showed. I think it's a longer ramp. She showed. They showed up. They haven't done anything. So I don't think this is as damaging as if it would have been in their run, whatever their run is going to be. Yeah, but it was 1 week.
The first 2 weeks in.
Yes, they did. New Day who went to SmackDown. But what I'm saying is they're not in the middle of a championship program or a championship run even. So
they will be.
It would be more damaging if that were the case.
Revival is the best tag team in wrestling.
Better than the Alpha?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yes, because they know how to cheat.
Cheat to win? Folks, also sad news earlier.
The Alphas can't get past the Carlitos right now.
The Primo and Epico Cologne?
Yeah.
Is it Cologne or Cologne or Cologne? Because there's no G-N-E.
Well,
it's C-O-L-O-N.
Don't say colon.
It's not colon.
Cologne.
Colin Powell.
Cologne.
Cologne.
Carlos Cologne.
Carlito Cologne. Why do you call them the Carlitos? I don't understand.
Because they're related to Carlito.
Speaking of relations, ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, sad news to report as the brother of WWE star Roman Reigns, former WWE star Rosie, passed away this past Monday at the age of 47. Many of you remember Rosie, one half of the 3-Minute Warning tag team back in the Bischoff era of WWE.
And former tag team champion with Hurricane Shane Helms as Rosie, the superhero in training.
Ah, yes. Yes, I remember that very vividly. But you know what I did not realize that you pointed out earlier, David Hero, was he was the other half of 3-Minute Warning was Umaga before Umaga was a thing.
And that's why I'm on the show, because I bring the facts to this production.
Of course, our condolences go out to the family of
the entire Samoan dynasty.
Yeah, because they're all, and this is not a knock, but they are literally related in some way, shape, or form. But this is the brother of Roman Reigns. So with that, folks, that is this week's hot news. We're going to take a time out. When we come back, it's your comments here on Feedback Friday. Welcome back to the Pro Wrestling Report Feedback Friday, ladies and gentlemen. Damian Nelson sitting alongside David Hero. Before we get to your comments of the week, I want to talk to you about a couple of things actually that we talked about on Primetime just yesterday. And the first of which is a big new opportunity for you as wrestling fans to see WWE's major events each year in style. Style and profile, and be a jet flying, wheeling, dealing, sweet sitting, son of a gun. S-U-I-T-E, sweet.
Oh, okay.
Sitting, son of a gun, because we'd like to introduce to you a new opportunity called Wrestling Suites, VIP Wrestling Suites. It's going to kick off with WWE's SummerSlam weekend in Brooklyn, New York. For both NXT TakeOver Brooklyn and WWE SummerSlam, you'll have the opportunity to sit and watch an exclusive VIP suite. Now, SummerSlam is sold out. So the only way to get in now is to purchase a suite ticket from VIP Wrestling Suites at WrestlingSuites.com. And also NXT, which hasn't gone on sale yet, but quite frankly, these are going to be the best seats in the house, and they are priced to sell. That's VIP Wrestling Suites. We're also going to be moving along the trail down the road to Survivor Series in Houston, the Royal Rumble in Philadelphia, and then, of course, WrestleMania at the Superdome in New Orleans. You know all the details available on all that at WrestlingSuites.com right now.
Philadelphia is a spoiled wrestling city.
Are they really?
They get a lot of big Raws. They get a lot of pay-per-views throughout the year.
They do. Philadelphia is much like New York for WWE, though, because they back in the TV taping days, a lot of stuff happened. A lot of tapings occurred in Philadelphia. I think that's where their TV studio was for a while as well.
Might have been.
It's in Philadelphia. And how about Ring of Honor? They're doing a show. I'm sorry, NXT, I think, is doing a show at Center Stage in Atlanta. I think that's absolutely fantastic.
That is funny.
Center Stage was where WCW Saturday Night was taped back in the day, even before they went to Disney or whatever. And NXT's running the show. Absolutely tremendous. But folks, we don't have a suite for that event. I don't think Center Stage has any suites.
No.
But just again, more at WrestlingSuites.com. You can join the free VIP list, ladies and gentlemen, and get early access and special discounts to those suite deals. Limited number of suites available for each event, and it all kicks off with SummerSlam weekend in Brooklyn, New York. Now, David, I could say this. I don't think, as many times as I've been to New York City to get my Pace Picante sauce, I don't think I've ever been to Brooklyn. I think I've been to Queens.
I was in Brooklyn and Queens. Queens is interesting.
Really?
Yes.
That's where the Costanzas live.
Really? I had no idea.
Yeah, they were living
I've been to
Queens.
And apparently you're not supposed to walk around in Queens at night. I didn't get that memo.
I would think that'd be... Hey, can we get JTG and Shad Gaspard to be a part of what we're doing out in New York?
I'm sure we could.
I just hear them say Brooklyn, Brooklyn.
Okay. Just
I'll give them a call. They were on Fight TV with Sal and I, SoCal Val and I, so we got rapport.
I wasn't invited to that.
Yeah, she made that happen. She contributed. She brought something to the table at that broadcast. It was interesting.
Yeah, it was a hot little dress. Is what she brought to the table.
Well, you could.
No.
You're right. It wouldn't be hot. It'd just be a little dress. VIP Wrestling Suites, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for joining us. And keep in mind, those seats are limited and available now. WrestlingSuites.com. With that, let's get to your comments, though, folks. And the first one, a lot of comments, and a lot of them centered around Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman this week. And they're all a little bit different, so let's listen closely. First one comes to us from a YouTube user by the name of SN1281, who says, and I quote, and this is a reference to, I think, what I said last week here on this broadcast, or one of our broadcasts, that fans only boo Roman Reigns to be cool because it's the cool thing to do. Well, this user disagrees and says, people don't only boo Reigns to be cool. If he were good, it wouldn't be cool to boo him. He is a failure as a face and a top guy, and no matter how many times you say people just want to be cool, it won't be true. He makes good money. Okay, great. That doesn't mean someone that doesn't get booed out of the building wouldn't make more. There's a lot of hatred in that statement.
You know what? Here's how you got to look at it.
How do we have to look at it?
Let's say...
I think there's a great example right now, actually.
Well, then why don't you go first and cut me off?
No, I'm just... You paused, so I thought you got lost there.
No.
Fox and Bill O'Reilly. Be honest. He was their biggest moneymaker.
He was. And they got rid of him. But
there's not another Bill O'Reilly to step right in and take that spot.
Not. No. Much like there was... Who's that one cat that got fired for lying about being in a war?
That was Brian Williams, who's now on MSNBC.
Yeah. Here's the thing. So let's say you have a regular gimmick job, okay, 9 to 5, you're working in the factory.
What a way to make a living.
It is. But and you have that guy on a press, and he's the most productive guy in the press. He makes sure that everything runs smoothly. He makes good money. He's there every week.
On time.
On time.
Does he complain a lot?
Sometimes stays late. Not worried about doing the job for somebody else. Do you get rid of him if he's one of your most profitable employees? But
everybody hates him.
Because everyone else hates him? No. You give him a raise.
But why do they hate him, David Hero?
Because they can't be him. Come on, let's be honest. You know?
He's the one who's picked for promotions because he's the favorite. He's the one who doesn't deserve the raise. Yet all those things you said are the reasons he's getting those things. Great analogy, great comparison to what is going on, at least in some fans' minds, with Roman Reigns.
I'm going to be honest.
Please be honest.
I don't want to take any more Roman Reigns questions like that for a while. Because all we're doing is repeating ourselves every week.
Well, to a degree, you're right. However, this was specific to a comment that I made last week, and just be ready. There's a little bit more about Roman Reigns. As a matter of fact, the next one specifically from you, from a YouTube user by the name of Bishop Lives. He says, as me and you guys would agree, Roman Reigns is the face of the company that runs the place. But since majority of that universe doesn't give him that respect, how about pushing AJ Styles instead as the face of the company?
He is on SmackDown. AJ is the top guy in SmackDown.
I think he said as much this past Tuesday night on SmackDown.
Yeah. So
good match with Baron Corbin, by the way.
You have another guy I've been high on from day one.
Mm-hmm. Well, you were also high on Apollo Crews, as you mentioned, on prime time this past Thursday night.
I did that as a favor.
So if you're going to take Corbin, then take Crews just right along with him.
No.
You did that as a favor for me. How?
Because I didn't want you to take Apollo Crews.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that because it got me the win in the draft.
Because I saw he was on your short list. And he is a shorter talent. I should have avoided him at all costs. He can barely stay over the top rope. I should have known better.
Next comment, folks. This is reference Braun Strowman. This comes to us from a user by the name of Paulo Rogue. We've heard from him before. And he says, and I quote, this is in reference to the beatdown that Roman Reigns suffered at the hands of Braun Strowman last week. The beatdown was very well done. It served its purpose more for Braun than it did for Roman. It was a bit over the top where I did laugh a couple of times, but it did buy me into Braun Strowman as a legit monster. Roman getting the quote-unquote you deserve it chance, which we talked about here last week as being over the top, didn't bother me because attempting to create sympathy for a guy who is disliked will not work whether it is on a televised show or in a real-life scenario. The reaction only confirmed to me the dislike for the character for the past 2 years is genuine, rather than booing him because it is being the
It's a
cool
vocal
thing
minority.
to do.
That's what it is.
You know, that's something I wanted to challenge as of late. And I think on the first episode of the Nelson Factor podcast coming up next week, which, you know, I was given the rights to the Factor name from Fox.
I didn't want it.
After they fired Bill O'Reilly. I think that you say it's a small fraction of the audience, but I do believe that too many people are underestimating the number of people who listen to these podcasts, read these wrestling websites, and are in the quote-unquote know about what's going on. Case in point, we had so many people this past Monday night when, Tuesday night perhaps, yeah, Tuesday night, when Kevin Owens did his open challenge. Put out on Twitter, who do you think is going to be the open challenge opponent for Kevin Owens? Just about every response was either Mike Bennett or Shelton Benjamin.
Yeah.
Again, the percentage of people, whether it's perceived to be 2% and it's actually 4%, I think the number of people who are, quote-unquote, again, in the know, doesn't mean they actually know anything, but are in the know about the wrestling business, is much higher than anybody thinks.
Yeah.
And these people who are in the know, they've heard that Roman Reigns is the chosen one and that he can't cut a promo and that he can't wrestle, so they believe that. Playa.
I still believe that there's a lot of followers in the audience.
Oh, gosh, 99.23% of the audience are followers.
So,
absolutely.
Once the chant going and got all these little kids here that, don't know any better, are just going to be part of the show because they think it's cool.
But aren't they the ones cheering for Reigns?
Yeah, but
because they really like him?
Yeah, but they're also going to follow whatever everyone else is doing.
So they're going to whoop him when they get home?
Exactly.
But this is another fan, though. This happened last week for Paulo, where he was bought into Braun Strowman being a legit monster. Here's the thing about these things. As I said this past Monday, as I said Thursday on primetime, this past Monday is when I was brought into Roman Reigns being that monster. I'm sorry, Braun Strowman being that monster there is never any one moment, is there, David Hero? There is a slow simmering burn that occurs where somebody becomes over in your own mind.
They have done a great job of hiding all of Braun Strowman's flaws. Mm-hmm. They really have.
Well, they've accentuated.
And he's not a great promo guy.
No. That whole, actually, him and Kurt Angle's back and forth on Raw this past Monday night was borderline brutal.
You know,
it was like they were reading from cue cards, like on SNL.
I love Kurt Angle, but he looks like a shell of his former self when he walked out there.
I won't call it a limp, but his stature is more well-defined.
Yes.
Now than it ever was in the past.
I don't see any angle slams coming out of him anytime soon.
But, you know, I think what's true about Kurt Angle, and we've both seen it, is there is, you know, game face happens when he goes through that curtain. All his pain goes away until he comes back through the curtain again. So I think, I'm not sure if that switch is being flipped when he's coming out in a jacket versus coming out to be the machine that he is to wrestle.
Well, we'll see. Yeah, it's only a matter of time before Braun Strowman and Kurt Angle go at it.
Oof. The sacrificial lamb, if you will. Next comment, this again about Braun Strowman, but an interesting question about Braun Strowman's future. This comes from I Am Legend 561, who says, I love how WWE is booking Braun Strowman as a monster among men. T-shirt should be out next week, right?
It's out now.
Of course. But what is Strowman going to get from all of this when he eventually loses to Roman Reigns again?
I don't think so. Because Roman Reigns should come out limping like the Spirit of 76, battered and bruised. He got flipped over in an ambulance. Yeah. He got pushed off of a ramp in a what do you call it? Gimmick thing.
Gurney, yeah.
Gurney. It's a stretcher. There is no way Roman Reigns can come back 100% for that match.
And you explained all the reasons why last night on the Primetime Extra podcast, and I don't disagree with you, but I do challenge you with this as I did with that then. The Rock in 2002 when he had a semi-truck driven through him.
Completely different.
Because he was The Rock? I mean, they're related.
It's different because they had to get him back for his match with Hulk Hogan right away.
They don't need to in this scenario.
No.
Okay. Well, thank you for that comment. Very interesting question. And finally, a YouTube user by the name of the Pop Culture Warrior, who's also very active on Twitter, by the way, said this regarding our discussion on the podcast last week, Primetime Extra podcast, about the JBL Mauro Ranallo situation, which, if you haven't listened to it, please go back and do so. He said this, and I quote, "The pro wrestling industry isn't for the thin-skinned, politically correct, easily triggered, safe space-seeking snowflakes. People need to back off."
I think it
JBL.
Is. It's not a publicly traded company. It's not the Attitude Era anymore.
Here's what is, I have long said this. Again, I keep thinking, I got to start writing these topics down for the Nelson Factor podcast. But I've long said this in all seriousness. This country was better when the mob was in charge. And what I mean by that is this. There were rules you followed, right?
Yes.
There were consequences for not following those rules. And generally speaking, except for my kind, if you will, the 60s and 70s and even the 80s were fantastic. And now this stuff that was just said, you know, we've got this whole United Airlines thing. You know, Congress wants to talk about how airlines should not be overbooking anymore. And now Trump on Tuesday goes to, and this is not opinion, this is fact, goes on and says, you know, buy American, made American. All right, so if the airlines don't overbook anymore, what's going to happen, David Hero, to your airfares?
Oh, they're going to go up.
Substantially.
Yeah.
And then you will have done that to yourself because of your lack of understanding of how the business works. And they hadn't overbooked.
What are the chances that the guy that they pull off the plane was filthy?
Everyone has a past, David Hero.
Dude.
Just because yours was somehow or another wiped clean. So talked about a better era back in the day because you knew who to go to get that kind of stuff taken care of, right?
That guy's going to get a hell of a payday for being a scumbag.
But with the whole buy American, made American thing, if you're thinking that you're going to buy this jacket, that jacket, this paper, this phone that's made here in the United States, you're going to pay much more for it than you are now. And then it's going to be, that's a problem, but we will have done it to ourselves. So to this point, I think that, yes, we have advanced, and we joke about the O'Reilly situation, same exact thing, right?
Yes.
Companies have to, it's all these Twitters and Facebooks and all this social stuff that makes a small thing, and I don't mean what has historically been a small thing, into a large issue.
And it wasn't United's fault. It was the Chicago police's fault.
That's the other point nobody's talking about. United didn't do this. The Chicago police, the Chicago Aviation Police did the act and did it wrongly, but who's getting all the heat?
United.
Because of
It was on their airplane.
In social media, and the fact that you can spread that video, which only includes that little piece that happened. I'm not justifying what they said.
Not, though.
I think it was. I think maybe he gave John Cohn some lessons on how to sell this past Monday night. So. But anyways, God, I didn't expect that comment to go there. But look, it's not about backing off of JBL. We talked about this exclusively on the podcast. The difference, I think, here though,
JBL has a history for being that guy, though.
Doesn't make it right. And as you said, they are now a publicly traded company. But I think the difference here is, as we talked about on the podcast, is Morrow is well known as a mental health advocate. So it's not just bullying somebody, it's poking the bear.
Again, if you're going to be offended by one thing, be offended by all of it. You can't pick and choose what you're offended by. You know what I mean?
I truly haven't been offended since 1988.
Oh, that's not true. You were extremely offended in November. You were shoot hot.
In November. Where was I?
At the polls.
No, that was when I had to vote for Ted Cruz. When I was shoot hot and not offended, just embarrassed. That's also when I registered as a Republican, which is the God honest truth. I sit here as a registered Republican, and I don't have a problem with that. I'm actually independent, but be that as it may.
Dude, you just knocked down the fourth wall. Why would you do that?
What? I'm independent. There's nothing wrong with that. You're independent as well, I hope, too.
Independent.
Chris Rock did a great... You know, if you go back, listen to a lot of Chris Rock's comedy from his albums of the past, nail on the head. Blindly following a party, blah, 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 blah.
Sex in champagne rooms, all that kind of stuff.
But I believe that to be erroneous in some states.
Really?
How he says there's no sex in the champagne room. Or do they just not have champagne in the champagne room?
I don't know.
Something gets spilled. But that is, thank you for your comments, ladies and gentlemen, here on Feedback Friday or something else. On Feedback Friday. Speaking of which, you're going to be out in Vegas for the Cauliflower Alley Club, David Hero.
I cannot wait.
You are going to be there. That is at the Orleans Casino, I believe.
Gold Coast.
At the Gold Coast Casino. Fantastic.
I'll be there with Mean Gene Okerlund
right
and
across
Pat
the street
Patterson.
from the Rio. That is a party that is waiting to be had.
Oh, it's going to be tremendous. Howard Finkel's going to be there.
That's fantastic.
Can you imagine?
It's a great event, folks, in Las Vegas. Can't wait to hear your reports.
I'll be at C2E2 this weekend.
Oh, what is that?
It's the Chicago Comic-Con.
R2D2?
Jerry Lawler will be there. Lita,
C3PO?
Jack Swagger, Gene Okerlund.
That's a heck of a group. Name them again.
Jerry Lawler, Lita, Jack Swagger, and Gene Okerlund.
That's fantastic.
That's a crew.
That is a crew related. C2E2 is where?
It's at the McCormick Place in Chicago. We'll be there Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Autographs and photo ops. It's going to be tremendous.
Chicago's your kind of town this weekend, huh?
It will be, without a doubt.
C2E2. How can people get more information on that, David?
C2E2.com. The letter C, the letter E, the number 2, C2, no, C2E2.
Confuse himself, folks.
I did.
.org. Thank you for joining us here on Feedback Friday. Be sure to check out I am unable to make it to Vegas this year, David. Here I have other commitments,
we got to go to Cheetahs again. Hang out with the Godfathers.
That was one of the least memorable nights of my life. I mean that in a literal sense, because there's a lot that I don't remember.
I don't know how we got back.
I know how I got back.
I don't
know how you got back. Well, I know how you got back. I don't know how you got back to your hotel, though.
There was no champagne in that room. Is that what you're talking about, getting back?
Yes. Okay. Folks, be sure to check out the Primetime Extra podcast, available right now for free. We talked about the rumors of Mike Bennett and Maria Kanellis on the way to WWE, whether or not we're going to see Broken Matt Hardy in WWE, more about Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman at Payback, whether or not that's too soon, and Drew McIntyre's return to WWE and NXT. And as we said as well, you have an opportunity to win free tickets to the next WWE event in your area. Once each of our podcasts reaches 100 ratings, 100 ratings left for each podcast, we will select one of the people from each of our 4 podcasts to receive a prize of 2 free tickets to the next WWE event in their area.
Just awesome.
Again, we don't care what you say, what your review is, or what your rating is, as long as you do it. It really helps us as far as the iTunes world goes. So this is only applying to iTunes. But we do appreciate your efforts in helping with that as well. And with that, next week, it's the draft, the fantasy draft, David Hero.
I cannot wait.
Is that right? You got shenanigans planned? You got something up your sleeve?
It's my year.
One for the Gipper?
I am not drafting Apollo Crews.
I think that's quite clear.
Yes.
But you know it's going to be 5 and 5.
I would rather...
I got 5 on it. 5 Raw, 5 SmackDown.
Why?
Because they have equal number of pay-per-views each year. That's when points are made.
I would rather draft Bayley over Apollo Crews.
Okay. You don't think you can find 5 stars from SmackDown to draft? Or from Raw?
Well, Apollo Crews
total of
Raw.
10.
Yeah, of course I can.
So 5 and 5.
It's going to be interesting.
That's next week. The fantasy draft, and also be the booker for Payback next week here in the programming of the Pro Wrestling Report. Fans, thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you again next week. In the meantime, continue to check out our podcast offerings. For that one, this is Damian Nelson saying thank you so much for joining us.